Okay, I did one on sun worship here recently in ancient primordial sun worship and how it led to everything and kind of blended it into a modern day. And I'm going to do it again because I really didn't cover it all, and I know I'm going to leave out stuff this time too. It's just a nature of the game, even if I was to try to make a list. Regardless, what we're looking at here is a solar calendar. This is the calendar we use today, and it's based on the idea of the zodiac and how through the year the zodiac slowly spins like a dog chasing its tail, like we talked about, or a serpent biting its tail, going around and around like a wheel, like the wheel in the sky that keeps turning. And when you look at a Mayan calendar, they have a little wheel inside a bigger wheel, and we're actually looking at that right now in a triple aspect, but people don't recognize it. That there's a yearly aspect, a daily aspect going on here. And then there's also a great year, which is after 70 years, 1 degree of this wheel turns. There's 360 degrees to a wheel, so you add that all up. You have over 2,000 years before you actually go between being in, say, uh, Sagittarius and going back to Aries. And whenever you come in close to it, they talk about being cusps. Well, right now we're on the cusp of Aquarius, which sadly is not shown down off of here. And so let me talk about some aspects and symbology and things that are carried, because these Proto-Indo-Europeans that brought religion and humanity to all the people, all the outlying people, people far, far apart from where you would think, from being Europeans and stuff, would have actually touched upon in ancient days. But the Proto-Indo-Europeans that most of the Europeans come from are a blend of them with the primordial people or endemic people that were in Europe, which are still related, would have shared this knowledge, and they all carry a sun worship from Japan and the land of the rising sun to India and its great wheel in the sky and its gods that mimic a thing like this zodiacal concept too. But then this sun god and this sun worship that carries into Sumeria with a great god Utu, and you hear about the stories of Shamash and how even Gilgamesh had gone to him to seek immortality, and he led him to where Napishtim was, the Noah of the Bible, and for him to try to find immortality. And it shows you a distant snake worship that they had too, because in the tale he does finally get the plant of life, which really wasn't going to make you immortal, but it made you young again. So this was the fountain of youth concept and its origins. And whenever he went to sleep, a snake came up and ate it, and then he woke up and realized it and looked, and the snake was crawling off and it shed its skin, and instead of being an old dying snake, he was all brand new again, as snakes do. And so there's a primordial concept with that idea too, and an esoteric knowledge too, that mankind had come to another realization. Mankind had shed its skin and become to a different people, that a new evolution is shown, and it sometimes is not shown in an outward way, but a lot of times in an inward way. But something that had come from a long time before that, but you get to a point in it and you can realize that it came into somewhat of a fruition. And I'm telling you, this led in Proto-Indo-Europeans had this idea, and they passed it on to everybody to the far reaches of all of Eurasia. What we're looking at here, if you'll look, is a double sun, and it kind of looks like you draw a sun whenever you're in, I don't know, school and stuff. Of course, at first you would draw something much more primordial. We'll look at those here in a second. But what you see here is the symbol of the black hole sun, or the black sun, or the unseen sun. And people have made so many esoteric things out of this and this deep knowledge type point. But understand, the way that I understand it is the ancients knew that you couldn't look upon the sun, but the sun was fire. Now, fire is real bright, and when you get a big old fire going real bright and you try to look at the sticks inside, they're just black, and you're staring and squinting through brightness. And the sun is so much stronger than that you can't see it. But just like a torch, the sun is black, and it's emitting off the gases that are lit on fire, and that lit on fire is emitting the brightness, and because of that brightness, you can't see God. No one has ever seen God, and you hear these things about it, and it all has to do with sun worship and things. And when he has his eye upon you, but yet when he's asleep, he's most aware. Well, why is he most aware? Because all of his stars in the sky were all reflecting his power. And so, how does that work? Well, like the torch in Indiana Jones, when you go into an ancient crypt full of gold and jewels, the glint goes off of those like the glint off stars. And ancient people's beliefs is this giant sun was so bright that it was making everything lit up. Even whenever it went around our planet at nighttime, it's still emitting light everywhere. Whenever Indiana Jones is in that room with that torch and you walk away down the hallway, you no longer are watching at the glint, but da-da-da. Kind of like the idea that during the day, the sky is blue, like you see the background here, and you don't know what's there. And so it's hidden in esoteric knowledge. And so people, whenever they wanted to make it esoteric, they actually used what was going on during the day, the thing that you would not know. And that was the big secret out of it all. And you look at symbology across all of this, and I think he looks like a lion. And you can see how a lion would be depicted as pulling off something of a sun. And you can see the ancient Greeks and the blonde-haired people and how that was children of the sun, and so on. And the blue-eyed people hooking up to this blue concept too. So this seemed to be something that really went, hand and foot with each other. Oddities of this, I guess, are that the moon, which is shown here, and you can tell it's kind of blocked out the sun, but is the moon in front of the sun rays? Yeah, it kind of looks like it is because it's stopping them. It's not like these rays continue right here, this height, of this height. So it's kind of in front of it, so they've got it depicted like that, but it's nowhere near the size of this. So all of this is a corona or an aura, and he's a little bit smaller than that because that makes an eclipse. There's a Jewish star right up here. I don't know if you can see that. So this also could be a clock, though, because there are 12 of these, and there's 12 hours in a day, and you can really break it down, and if you'll just pay attention, there you go. You can give numbers now and say a number is Leo and a number is this, and we can go around and have the 12 and the 12 steps of Horus, which are the 12 steps of the hours through the day. Hours and Horus only being a transposition of one letter. Wow, how easy. So let's look at what's said here, right here. Christ astrology, pagans, and sun worship. It's rare that he encounters other bloggers sharing his perception of suns as a celestial being. Yeah, they used to worship the sun. Yeah, definitely. It's a conscious entity. Yeah, it made everything work and grow. And you can see whenever the sun shines on flowers and they open up and things like that. And people realize that all of this is alive, that the sun makes all this happen, and you plant flowers and it grows them up and it dries up the waters, but then that also makes clouds, and clouds rain, and wow, this thing is right here hovering over us like an eye in the sky watching you, and all this happens from it. So it's a god. Now esoterically we broke that into, well, a lot of pantheons seem to have 12 gods, or like in Sumerian they had 3, and there's your triad, your trinity, but they had 3, and then 3 turned into 6, and then 12. And of course their numerology is based on 6 and 12 and 60 and stuff. So that's how you get 360 degrees, by the way, when we go around a circle. And so they surely, by having this and knowing that, and it was declimated off the sun itself, so surely they knew that the world was round, because that is the circumference of a ball. That's how this all works. And they knew that the sun fell 1 degree per day during the fall of the sun, as it falls down through the sky. And it reaches its lowest point on December 21st, which is right near a sign that's called the Southern Cross. It literally looks like a cross. And then it stays there for 3 days. Due to the Earth's wobble, it doesn't appear to go down or come up. It just stays there, symbolically dies. And then it starts rising up. But that's the pitch of winter there. And then it starts rising up from there more and more and more. Now, at this time, we have a lot more darkness than we do have daylight in the northern hemisphere. So that's where this comes from. And whenever this happens, it's more darkness than daylight. And as we go through and into spring, once we hit Easter, Easter is the clearance point to where there's actually more light than there is darkness. And you can say light overtakes the darkness, and Christ is the light bringer of the world. So the ancient esoteric knowledge was that the Son of God, see, because God created the sun, God created everything, and so God must have created that sun, and so that's the Son of God. And when you sacrifice things, you burn them, and the sun's on fire. So God sacrificed his only begotten Son, like the story of Kronos. That's where the first part of that comes from. Sacrificed his only begotten Son in strife, and in doing so, it gave life to the world and light to the world. But then light is looked at as knowledge in most of this also. And he's the light bringer. But oh no, the light bringer's Lucifer. But then Jesus, and you hear all this stuff, and oh, is he bad or is he what? Yeah, and it's just so confusing to people. But it's the sun. And in fact, whenever they made Latin up and stuff, it made it just all too clear to people, and it kind of lost its thing. And you wonder why Latin unified everybody with a language, and then all of a sudden everybody dropped that crap, is because it pretty much during the Dark Ages kind of fell apart, because sun is sun. The Son of God is the Son of God. There's a couple of places in the Bible that talks about that, but let's go like with this. This guy says this is pretty deep, and the last sentence is even deeper. It begins like this. Although Christians generally consider such veneration paganism, it's evident that even Christianity is rooted in pagan mythology and sun worship. The sun takes preeminence over the apparent tiny stars of the zodiac, and a large region of the night sky ancient astronomers divided into 12 constellations or signs. And in your Bible, God, let there be light. That's the thing that makes it all happen. And then there's also the idea that he dries up the waters and does the things, and you can see that aspect in it too. Then there's also the idea that the heavens and the skies, it was just kind of like phew, even though that, as we know now, is the entire universe. So they thought at one time we were in somewhat of a snow globe, and that there was a glass crystal dome over us. It even describes it being like hammered, like tin. So you can tell at what time they had come up with this concept. But that it had windows in it, and those windows allowed it to pour in. If you read the ancient Sumerian documents and you misinterpret somewhat, you'll get the same idea that they did, and you'll pull the Bible off. And it's what I showed in one of my recent videos, where it shows the ancient Sumerians and how the Bible had come out of that, and a lot of it is a direct opposition to their exact concepts. So, and it comes directly from it, and it's almost like they say it's like this, but it's like this. But yeah, it's the same crap, but yeah, it's like this. It's oddly similar, and not even to the point people don't notice it once you're shown it. So the sun takes prominence over the apparently tiny stars in that zodiac, and also they apparently take prominence over the major light and the lesser light. The moon, apparently, whenever they wrote this, was lit. Somehow these people, the reflection off the sun made it lit. Though the Sumerians knew that it wasn't lit, it was a reflection. In fact, they described this, and that's how you get the turning of the waxing and waning and crescent moons and so on, is the sun being over here and you're looking at that ball. But now look over here and all you see is a crescent. Look over here, now it's almost dark, but if I keep going around, now it's back to a crescent, now it's half, now it's full again. Isn't that amazing? But they already had that concept, and people said, oh, they thought the world was flat and stuff. Yeah, maybe some people thought the world was flat or led to believe it was, but Even the Greeks knew the world was round, and they even measured the circumference of it. So, to real good accuracy. He tells you here there is, in fact, a lot of paganism in Israel's history. And I've shown that in some of my older videos and stuff where there was Saturn worship, and the satyrs and Saturday, and that's what the original days of worship and stuff was, and that was the most high God. It's the farthest away planet that we can visibly see. And so that's the most high whenever you think of heaven, and being close to the earth is being farthest away from heaven, and so on, if you will. And the cosmos was made by God, so the cosmos is God, but people don't look up. Like Moses said at Sinai, and he's talking to God, he goes, oh, they're a stiff-necked people. People don't sometimes catch that as conjecture, but the idea is that all the things we're talking about are up in the heavens, and it's all zodiacal stories, trying to let you know we're farmers now, and these are farmer tales trying to keep you up with the seasons and all this, and people are going pretty crazy with it by now. Watch what happens next. And if you're into the Bible, you realize what happens next. But and it's really a story of what not to do, but a long drawn out story of what supposedly happened to lead all the way to the mankind of that area. And it's really only about Caucasians. People nowadays have said, oh, well, one of them's an Asian, one of them's white, and one of them... No. There's all three Caucasians from a perfect generation. It's just a story about what had happened in the Proto-Egypt, Caucasians, all in that area there in all of North Africa, nobody else. But anyhow, so... people are familiar with the New Testaments, so let's skip forward a few centuries. The Son sustains all life in the New Testament, and Jesus is a great light. He is the only true light, able to provide light of life. It talks about it in Matthew 4:16, John 1:69, 8-12. Also see John 10:18 and Acts 4:12, where the sun lights up the world, followed by 12 star signs, and this is God lighting up the world, followed by his disciples. In the New Testament, Jesus is the light of the world, followed by 12 disciples. In John 8:12, just as it says. Most Christians know virtually nothing about astrology. Consequently, they fail to recognize its symbols. In Scripture in former times, however, Christians were aware of the Bible's astrological connections and embraced them because they knew they were sun worshippers. Here's something I skipped over. Just want to mention this. In Genesis, Jacob, the patriarch of Israel, famously, plainly refers to himself and his 12 sons as the 12 suns and stars, and you can see this in a few places throughout. But let's take a look at that. Just Genesis, 13:37, 9-10, and I've got it pulled up. I pulled up a Bible thing. Got it on the phone here. I'll read it out to you. It simply says, it was talking about his dreams, and of course dreams meant a whole lot. Jacob had the dream that he had saw God when he was a stranger in a strange land in front of a ziggurat, actually watching people go up down a stairway to heaven. It's kind of where the song comes from. Whenever I tell you, when I was a kid, everything kept slapping me in the face as I started looking into this. It really did. And whenever I got into neoclassical music and stuff, it was just in your face like crazy. And once you get into the heavy metal music, and they all had that, G thing, and da-da-da, it really got to where, they're all talking about this esoteric, paganistic type stuff and devil worshiping. But what's funny is they show hexes on albums and pentagrams and stuff, and that's the sign of Venus, and this is this, and it's all ancient star worship. But yeah, so he's going into all these dreams, and see, you think there's nothing weird like that going on in the Bible, but there's dream interpretation like crazy. There's the Jacob dream interpretation, which you can tell the whole family gets into here, I'm fixing to tell you about. But also, it was the claim to fame of Joseph in Egypt himself, where he interpreted a dream of a pharaoh and realized they were going to have a drought, and in setting up for it, ha-da-da-da. But that's another story totally. I can go into that with a whole nother video. Here's the reading, 37:9, Genesis. Then he had another dream, and he told to his brothers, listen, he said, I had another dream, and this time the sun and the moon and 11 stars were bowing down to me. So that's telling you that there was a sun and 12 other celestial objects that were bowing down to him, right? It's what it kind of sounds like to me. And the next one that you would look at said, there he had another dream. Why won't it go to the next one? Here we go. When he told his father as well as his brothers, his father rebuked him and said, what is this dream you had? Will your mother and I and your brothers actually come and bow down to the ground before you? Now, people don't read into that correctly, but right now, we've just had the patriarch himself tell him that he and the other people are the stars, and that they were to bow down to Israel, who is looked at as being the sun in this effigy. If I'm wrong, tell me in the comments. I'm sure people have 1,001 esoteric lies they can go with, but this certainly goes with that concept. It's a zodiacal idea. Maybe if I revealed to you that the ancient Phoenician word for the planet that we know of today as Saturn was Israel, it might actually identify what's going on in these Canaanite and Phoenician lands. People think of Phoenicians as being, oh, it was like these couple of seaports and then one over there in Carthage. Or no. What did the Canaanites? That's what, yeah, Canaanites. What did the Phoenicians call themselves? Oh, they call themselves Canaan. Oh, so all of that was these Phoenicians, and you're just trying to claim the ports because of the boats as being that as a different entity. And they were all together as city-states, but separate, and colonized all around the entire Mediterranean. Quite amazing. But they were the merchants of old and so on. But yeah, so there's no other way to look at that other than that. So there it is, coming up into a more modern day. But let's just look at a few pictures here maybe too. See if I can. Sun worship. I'm going to put this probably as the front of it, put sun worship across it, or maybe another one. But you see the sun and its rays coming down. And if you've ever seen the sun cutting through holes in the clouds, how it sprays out like this, see what I'm talking about, right? But certain angles of this make up the angles of the pyramids too, because it's certain angles of the sun. And whenever I tell you, this goes all the way back to man and stick and fire. They thought they had stolen fire. Icarus had to get fire from mankind, and he went up and tried to light a torch off the sun. Is this the ancient concept? This is how we got fire. It all comes from the sun. It's on fire. The Son of God is on fire. Is that what it is? Is it this kernel of life that on the inside of it shows up? There's sun worship that shows up in far too many aspects, but here's another one. Oh, it's a terrible picture. But this shows these ancient pillars standing up and worshiping the sun when you're not even there. Making sure every day there are these pillars lined up. But are they worshiping the sun? Well, it lines up to certain times of the year for the sun. So all of it is primordial sun worship. In fact, anything that lines up to any astrological thing whatsoever is going to work on that, because we're kind of under a solar calendar. So whenever you see something like Stonehenge, you got to realize that that's, again, a sun worship type thing. And you see these ancient symbols of Christ that they have here, and this is a sun with its unseen center that has long and sharp spikes on it, just like you draw when you're a kid, and that's a sun symbol. And you don't think that's in Christianity and Catholicism. Here it is. Blessed Sacrament itself, right there. Bam. There it is right there. And the world is inside that situation. Well, no, that's inside the sun. So people get weird things out of this, what aren't necessarily true, but here we are, and the little cherubs are going around the sun. And if you don't think that's about sun worship, what about that? Right. Okay, and so the Son of God, and there it is, and who's God, and who's the Son of God, and who were the children of the sun? And that's another thing that threw it in my face when I was a kid, that song, dun, 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 children of the sun, that was on. and everything. And I'm all like, what? And we were all spending all summer out at the lake and doing this stuff, and it's like, wow, this is just like, but it's weird. It's like hippie stuff and doing this, weird esoteric things. You have sun catchers. Huh? You know what I'm talking about? Sun catchers? The symbology in them, right? Sun worship, sun catchers. You have people with a nimbus or sun disk on their head. You have Nimrod and Tammuz, halo or sun disk. You have this right here. This is Semiramis and Tammuz, or Dumuzi. You hear about him as Tammuz in the Bible, but this is the baby Jesus and Mary and the concept of that. And you see it here, and you see it in Egypt, and you see it in the concept of the mother and the child and how this works together. And it's the same thing that you see in here. And there she is with that sun halo around her. But also, doesn't Saturn have a disk or a halo around it? Right? So that leaves another esoteric mark on this Saturn worshiping type thing. But whenever I tell you, ancient people were sun worshippers, and sometimes they worshipped volcanoes and volcano gods and snakes and aspects of creatures, kind of like the Amerindians did. It's straight up. Of course, solar power now, we're able to harness the power of that sun, the power of God. We had fire, like Tom Hanks. I've created fire. We have this long ago, and we're still stuck on these same concepts, where this cult of Ra, and this sun worship, and this snake that encircles and gives you that same esoteric idea, and the eagle and the snake and the rainbow and the serpent and the sun creates the rainbow. And at the end of all the storm God that came in and destroyed everything, God left a rainbow. Well, a rainbow is left from moisture in the air vapor, but that sunlight cutting through it, it makes a rainbow. So people understood at that point light cutting through a crystal would make little rainbows or prisms. Prism. Man, I could go deep into all of that type of stuff too, but more or less what we're looking at is all aspects of ancient sun worship. And the Son of God is the sun, and he rises again on December 21st, or dies on December 21st, rises again 3 days later, December 24th, and sun worship. Things are presented to the sun because the sun does things for us. And there's the Son of God, and there's the sun in its positions and zodiacal meanings and everything, but it all works off that. But they also believed everything was illuminated. Everything was illuminated by this bright sun. So even though the sun would go down, kind of like in the picture here, and you start to see it dark, all of these lights, that's still lit up by that sun going around the planet no matter what. Just like a torch in a room at Indiana Jones lighting up and gleaming things. And there we have the sun. It lights up everything. And the ones that are special are the planets that are moving around. Planet means wandering star. And the angels are stars. And all of the stories out of the Bible were recanting to angelism and so on. And where do these winged creatures come from? Well, it starts out that we can find in Sumeria, but it doesn't. It goes back deeper than that. When people used to let their dead lay up on top of a dais and had the birds eat the body and take it up into the sky like buzzards. And this concept of taking people up to heaven, taking pieces to God, now we look at it as being a soul situation. The Egyptians thought they had to hold the soul somehow and keep your mouth closed while you were dead up until you went through the whole process, and then they had the opening of the mouth and doing the esoteric book of the dead, right, which is the coming forth by day. People used to get buried facing the east, so they would be reborn, laying on their side in a primordial womb situation, in a fetal position with red ochre all over them, facing to the east to catch the coming of the next sun. This is what the Egyptians did. They were dead and rode the solar boat and came up and became re-alived again reanimated by becoming the sun the next day around, becoming a part of the sun. People sometimes still to this day believe that your energy all becomes light, like Yoda, your beings of light. And because of that, at the end, our body whisks away as light and becomes energy for the sun to use. You look at this ancient picture here of people, and it's just a hodgepodge, just a watercolor. But this is children of the sun. This is all the colors of the rainbow of people. This is sun worshippers. Sun worship painting by R.M. Prim. And what is sun worship? Well, it's people that utilize all the colors of the rainbows, but certain ones. Blue's very special to them. What is the end of the spectrum? Oh, the end of the spectrum is purple. Purple's hard to make. Yeah, and it's the sign of royalty. But the sun looks yellow to our eyes, so there's got to be something special with yellow and gold, isn't there? Oh yes. The golden people, the golden-haired people, the children of the sun, and all those things, that goes with it quite well. So you can see these people up here worshiping, and it looks like what we're looking at is a young girl, maybe because of the dot, and a woman, and you can see a sign here as a symbol of a planet. Then you see what looks like, I guess, a man because of the phallic symbol, and then another maybe boy because it looks like either him or him on their shoulder has an animal skin. That sounds very familiar. And then here we have a primordial mound, or a mountain, or a mount, and on that there's a cross. Isn't that neat? Yeah. And here we have a box and a line on it, which looks like a wagon, if you will, looking down onto it, but it doesn't have a wheel. Is there anything that looks like a wheel? Well, yeah, this looks like a wheel, but that's the sun, and I think we can all figure that out. This looks like a cactus, but it's really somebody doing this symbolic thing and standing up. And here's another symbol of a man standing and presenting something out to him. And there's a giant banner that's here, and a person that's here, which doesn't seem to have much of a head, but neither does that guy, and so on. What is all this about? Well, this is sun worshiping. And what is this? Oh, this is ancient cave art. This is from some 36,000 years ago. Oh, and there's a constellation. There's even lines drawn into it, and they go, that's a little dipper. Yeah, and so they had things like that figured out, but there's all this ancient symbology you find too, where, you know, here's a person holding onto the sun, like somebody doing a picture you see nowadays where it looks like they're holding the sun. Ancient sun symbols. Here's a symbol of a boat. This is one of the earliest symbols of a boat. This is a symbol of a boat. You can see that. Oh, people argued this for a while. Then people drew it and showed it to other people, and they go, yeah, that's a boat. And they go, this is that thing from 32,000 years ago. And they go, oh, well, that's not a boat then. That's a boat. That's that symbology I've been showing you on cave walls here recently and stuff. And what is this sun catcher symbol here, and this wheel in the sky that's here, and this circular symbology? And look, it's an owl. If you think about it, that's an owl's eyes trapped inside of what is the wisdom of the sun, the light. Here we may have the first concepts that light is wisdom, right? Light is knowledge, light is wisdom, wisdom is owls, right? You get that? But, I mean, even your fourth grader knows that's the sun. But the symbol goes back far, far away. But you see it again in Egypt, and people are like, ah. And here's an esoteric symbolism of the black hole sun and the night, and how the moon is the sun and the reflection of, and it's a portion of itself. You know, sometimes people draw an esoteric thing like that, and do they have the knowledge? I don't know if they have all of that. Look, it's the Lion King presenting the brand new baby to the sun god. Yeah, you don't think that American Indians had the same concept? Oh, they definitely did have the symbolism of the sun, right? I would sing the little song. No, I'm not going to do it. Stonehenge. Well, they're not sun worshippers and stuff. It's where the sun comes up. This is all built on the idea of where the sun comes up and the sun go down. Sun come up, moon go down, world spin round and round. Time for another lesson, grasshopper. This symbolism is carried back long before recorded humanity, but if we look on stones and things and stuff before recorded words, it's all over the place like crazy. Esoteric signs. Ra, there he is. Ra Ra Sis Boom Ba. But when you look at this, can you see Tanit, the Phoenician goddess, and the eye, right? And the Wajet eye, and Wajet is blue. That's what it means. And so now we have the blue-eyed Horus, and the concept that comes out of there. And if we see the moon setting atop, and the moon is feminine, across here with the bar and the body, that makes Tanit. And in ancient tomb depictions, it says, I knit on the head of the blue-eyed Horus, the god who acts. And you know the symbolism hooks up to Orion, the Aryan hunter, Orion, right? And these stars point to certain stars. He himself is pointing at certain stars. And the symbology that's important with those things and the symbols that go with it. But sun symbology is around everywhere. Sun worship. That should be the opener right there. Maybe saying sun worship in dark across the top. Yep. But are they carrying the sun around like a giant wheel? Like you see in India, where there's a giant 8-spoked wheel, the sun god Utu in his symbol, 8 spokes like in the Sumerian, huh? That's what that is. You don't think, though, it's in a modern day thing. It can't be. But here's that sacred Catholic symbol, and what do you think that is? What? What do you think that is? What do you think that is? And this coiled symbology that's around his neck. What do you think that is? And this Dagon hat that he wears and the cross and stuff, the symbology that's been around for thousands of years that he may not even be aware of. But look at this Dagon fish hat. You can see this, right? And the sign of the Southern Cross, and this sun worship that people have from primordial days. Here's that wheel of India. The carts were brought to India, the very first. In all the Mahabharatas, they talk about carts. But you can find ancient sun symbols. It looks like a wheel. There's that wheel. There's that wheel. There's that wheel. There's that wheel. Or are they taking that whole temple and rolling it down the way? Yes, that's the concept. It's a moving religion that came. Who were they? Can't tell you. If I say the word and I say India at the same time, they're going to flag my video. But yeah, this is ancient sun worship. And it goes back to the first time that we realized that the sun was there. So I'm guessing as soon as we realized a day from way back when, this is it. And the sun was a great controller. They thought that it dried up the world. It made everything happen. It was the progenitor. It was the thing. And we look at science today and we say, yes, whenever the sun lit on fire, it formed all of the planets. One of which was us. It took millions of years after that to even form, and then over 1 billion years before life started forming and so on. But all of those processes were brought about because of things that happened because of the sun also. And so this sun is the controller of our galaxy. Well, no, just our solar system. That's how they all work. We didn't know that back then, though. But every one of those dots you look at in the sky, every one of those is a sun. Yeah, and the ancient Sumerians talk about The sun is but like the stars of the sky. The destruction of Tiamat and how it sprayed across what we know as our Milky Way were described and said that the stars that are in the sky are but like our sun, but as a torch, far, far in the distance. And if somebody takes a torch and they walk far enough off, like tail lights in the distance, there's a little dot. It's amazing the insight of some of these people at ancient times. It's also amazing the stupidity we put on them in a modern day and go, oh, they were dumb. I didn't know the world was round. Well, I tell you what's real dumb. If you look into it, there's a lot of people saying the earth's flat right now. Yeah, how fucking foolish is that? But look, these ancient monks. Yep, and this is in a chapel. But I want to tell you, this arch symbol in the ceiling here, this is under one of the churches. And this is in a Mithraeum, because a lot of the churches that are across Europe, when they started it, were where Mithraeums were and sacred sites. And they just built on the top of it and wiped out the other part. But they just used the bottom for storage. And what's in there quite often is stanchions of Mithras and depictions like this, right? Moses and Mosaic. And people can't get any ideas on the difference between Moses and Mosaic and what happens all that. And the unconquerable Son of God with his mom, the moon, and Tanit are the God and his wife. This is Yahweh. This is Asherah and their son Baal. This is the sun. The sun is a round ball. It's on fire. Of course, Baal worship looked in different aspects, and they had all kinds of stuff going on. That's what the Bible people did. But you see the rays coming out of his head, and he's a sun. He is the light of the earth. And quite often he shows him carrying a torch. He is the light bearer. But then over and above that, there's your Statue of Liberty. So you don't think that pagan symbol follows everything around. Well, it can't go away. Why? Because everything's built on it. Everything's built on it. Oh, it's all pagan. No. Say it again, it's all pagan. Now, let's redo this again. It's all religion, sun worship, and ancient primordial worship that all goes together. Don't be hating. It's all the same thing from these same primordial people. Different people ended up going out in left field. Somebody's out in right field. Somebody's way over here in the cheap seats now. Yeah, flying horses and crap. Anyhow, there's a flying horse. It's up in the zodiac. It's Pegasus. Oh, there's an ancient story about it. Want me to tell you about it? No. Anyhow, guys, like, share, and subscribe. But yeah. So you think there was any sun worship going on? You think people don't sun worship today? You don't have the little smiley face. And why does the smiley face look like the sun? Why does everything look like the sun? How many things go with the sun? Right now I should have a list that I could just rattle off at you and just blow your mind on the way out the door. I think we've done a pretty good job already. But yeah, sun-kissed. Yeah. Sent by the sun, saved by the sun. The sun saves us every year coming out of winter and not going into an ice age. People think we're headed to global warming and oh my God, no, and really we're about due for another ice age. If you look at the ice age pulses, yeah, we're about due one. Anyhow, guys, like, share, and subscribe and enjoy. Peace.